Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. I'm Lewis, and in today's episode I'm going to be showing you the Def Watts Cutting Teeth 2. The Cutting Teeth 2 is a highly tuned, modified Rat. You would be familiar with this pedal because last week we had a Rat by Proco on the channel. This particular model I know uses the original IC, the original integrated circuit, for that most genuine tone possible. Now, while only changing one component may not make a huge difference to the sound, the sum of the parts is typically where you get the bigger result. So tuning those other frequencies and tuning those other components to make a good sounding pedal is a very time-consuming business, and I think that Brent's nailed this one on the head. So I thought I'd show you a little bit of the gain range and the filter range and see what it sounds like. Let's check it out. So today I'm playing my Fender Stratocaster. This is my bridge pickup. And my neck. I'm going from my guitar straight into the Def Watts, out of the Def Watts into our 2-note slug clean, which we are running the internal cabinet simulation on. From there off to our Ableton session. So a very clean, very simple signal path. Let's have a look at what this does at low gain. So I've got the gain turned all the way down so we can hear those early overdrive stages. And we do need a little volume to get that first bit of signal to come through. Cool. So overdrive sounds works pretty well. You do have a little bit of distortion going on pretty much all the notes at this stage, so it's not necessarily as dynamic as you might find a tube amp or an amp in a box pedal, but it does have a pretty good overdrive sound. I do like the way it kind of thins out the tone a little bit. And sounds pretty good. The filter control is all the way off. It's letting all of our high frequency through. I'm just going to quickly sweep that up over a few chords so that you can hear what that does. Back to my bridge, of course. And at about that 2 o'clock position there, you can hear it starts to take that top end off. And gets pretty dramatic at that top range. Like so. It's very simple control, but it works well. This is unusual to a lot of tone controls on effects pedals or overdrive distortion pedals in that it cuts high frequency only. It doesn't change our bottom end response. This is worth noting because later when we get into high gain, our low end response does change. So just keep in mind that that's only for high frequencies. You'll hear a little bit more of what it does at more gain, so we should probably move on. So now let's sweep through that gain control. But again, back on my bridge. 9 o'clock. Just going to back my volume off a little bit. So the gain control, even at this 9 o'clock position, really responds quite nicely to moving my volume knob back. It's a really good way to get two different ranges out of the pedal with just your guitar's control rather than having to bend over and move all the knobs. So let's slowly sweep this gain up again, go a little bit higher this time. So about that 10 o'clock position. Up. Having that volume control moved down just that little bit is giving me that really nice washed out sound. But it's a fine point. Let's push it up a little further. So there's a lot more bass going on. Jump over to the neck pickup. Bridge. Neck. So straight away, even at that sort of 2 o'clock position, we're getting that big, thick neck pickup lead sound that I'm a pretty big fan of. So while we're at this higher gain range, you can hear that that bottom end response is increasing. A really good way to control that is to watch the gain control. Already you can hear that for most palm muting, most crunchy kind of guitar sounds, you don't need to be this high on the gain knob. So I'm just going to back my volume control off a little bit just to hear how that can affect the bottom end response. Yeah, you can really hear that just by dropping your input signal back at that higher gain, you can go from a pretty crunchy, sort of distorted kind of sound, not necessarily overdrive, it's a little bit thick for that, into that fuzzier, bassier kind of response, even just on your bridge pickup. So that's pretty cool versatility to have at your fingertips or at your volume control tips. So worth checking out, worth learning how to get a little bit more out of that volume knob with something that has so much range of gain like the Cutting Teeth 2 does. So we'll sweep the gain up a little bit after I just have a play with that filter control at this level, just to see how much of that top end we can get backed off. You can hear that at that 11 o'clock point is where I hear that treble start to roll off. So I'm just going to sweep from that 9 up to 12. Some neck. It does make a big difference. I'm going to say for my current setup, as in my personal setup, that 11 o'clock position is about as far forward as I would probably go. I like being able to hear all of those extra harmonics and that brightness and sharpness to the sound. But if you're playing heavier styles of music, or maybe you're using this with different guitars, different pickups, that's a very handy control to have. It has a massive amount of range. Let's push that gain control now. Yeah, I shouldn't be surprised at how good this sounds. Some neck. So it's still getting quite fuzzy at that lower range. And I keep saying the word fuzzy because to me that bottom end heavy sound pushing those lower range of harmonics makes it sound fuzzy. At this higher gain range, if you want to control some of that bottom end, that fuzziness, all you got to do is come back to your volume knob. So I'm going to just sweep that up a little bit at the higher range, and we can get an idea of what the scope of work is between here at that 3 o'clock position on the gain control. So again, you can get that gain control backed off. It does lose that bottom endness, but you do also lose a little bit of the top end response at this particular gain position as well. I do like that when my volume knob is at the verge of turning off, you get that kind of washed out, honky kind of radio tone. That's a pretty cool setting to have, and it wouldn't be too hard to get a pedal with just a guitar's volume pot, like in an enclosure. You could pop it in front of a pedal like this, turn it on and off, and get a really specific amount of control over how much signal comes into the pedal to get the most out of it. So I think that's pretty cool. Let's have a sweep through the filter control at this higher gain range and then crank it. So again, that 11 o'clock position is still pretty relevant for me. If you were playing a guitar that had different pickups, you would definitely find that you could probably get that filter control over that 12 o'clock position. Or if you really wanted to play some doom or sludgy, really kind of ambiguous and thick sounding guitar sounds, that's a very cool feature to have on a pedal instead of just our traditional bass cut, treble cut, like a DS1 or Tube Screamer's tone pot. So let's have a quick sweep of that gain control just at the top end. We haven't got much room to go, and then a quick run through of the filter. It's pretty distorted at this point. You can hear those lower notes getting really fuzzy, and when I back the gain control off, we don't get into overdrive territory anymore. It just tends to take that bottom end effect out and reduces the fuzziness or the flabbiness that we're hearing. Let's have a play with that tone control. yeah, it's very distorted. Let's have a listen to some of the lead lines. I think with this much gain at the neck pickup, it's going to be pretty cool as well. Some neck. Yeah, it has that great neck lead tone that I really like. It's not too fuzzy at that high gain range. There's still quite a lot of definition. You don't get quite the percussive attack as I found that sound with, say, something like a Big Muff, but it is very nice either way. The neck pickup on this guitar is nice. It's not crazy. It's not anything too over the top. I think you would get a lot of range between 2 pickups and your volume control when you're using the Def Watts for yourself. If you're interested in checking one of these out, they are a little bit hard to come by because they are made by hand in very small batch numbers, but I'm going to tag the guy who builds this and you'll be able to follow that link and get in touch with them if you'd like one yourself. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a like, a share, a subscribe on social media. We do appreciate that feedback. You can head over to our Patreon page and become one of our esteemed Patreon members, and that helps us to put out as many good quality videos as frequently as possible and go towards the cost of production and equipment hire and room hire and all that sort of thing. So we really do appreciate that very much. The Def Watts Cutting Teeth 2. It sounds great. It's got a really good range of gain. I think that it has a little bit more gain in the lower range, as in you can dial the gain down a little bit more than the Proco Rat. And this doesn't seem to be quite as compressed sounding as the Proco Rat. So you can really draw that line of that fuzzy, flabby kind of sound with your palm muting more with the gain control on this than you can at least the Proco Rats that I have tried. So that works really well. The artwork's great, very simple, very clearly labeled. The connectors, everything feels really solid. I'm going to call it a win. I wish I had one on my pedal board. They sound pretty good. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out our video on the Proco Rat, and I'll see you in the next one.